For Honor! Shit. Aw, thanks, man. You know, I do what I can. Okay, so today I'm looking at For Honor, a multiplayer-focused action fighting game developed by Ubisoft. Now, this is a game that I have many mixed feelings for, and if you want my short opinion on the game, I think the multiplayer is fun, but the story mode sucks. There you go. You can stop watching the video now if you want. But please don't. So in the world of For Honor, there was this big natural disaster that plunged the world into chaos and sparked a never-ending war between the three factions of the world: the Knights, the Vikings, and the Weeaboos. Literally, the first thing you do in this game is pick what faction you want to support, and I went with the Vikings because I'm a big fan of Asterix and Obelix. You then get to design your own shield, and then you choose between multiplayer or story mode, and we'll talk about the multiplayer first because it's literally the first option on the menu screen. For Honor's gameplay is all about fighting, and it's got quite a unique fighting system. Basically, the whole thing revolves around guarding. You can guard to the left, guard to the right, or guard to the top. Where you're guarding from determines where you attack from, so if you're guarding to your right, you attack from your right. But if your opponent is guarding in the same direction you're attacking from, they'll block your attack. This is actually a really cool system. It forces the player to think very tactically and strategically, plus each of the different classes all have different combos and ways they can attack, block, stun, or parry. So that aspect of the game works really well. The core gameplay is fun, and I want you to remember that, because there's going to be a lot of criticizing and shit-talking in this video, but don't forget, the core gameplay is fun. Alright, let's get nasty. The multiplayer works okay. Once you get into the game, it usually runs fine, but it takes a pretty long time to get into one. First, you have to find the game, then there's a little loading screen, then you have to wait for everyone to pick their characters, then there's a long loading screen, and then you finally get into the game where you don't have to wait any longer, unless someone quits, in which case this happens. It's not a huge deal, but still, can be annoying. You got different kinds of matches you can do. There's a 1v1 duel, a 2v2 duel, a 4v4 deathmatch, a 4v4 dominion. They're all pretty fun, but they're way more entertaining with a friend, if you if you have any of those. Honestly, I don't have much else to say about the multiplayer. It's not perfect, but it's definitely the best part about For Honor. However, now I'm going to bitch and complain about the single-player mode of a multiplayer-focused game, because apparently that's just the kind of fucking person I am! The story mode is, it's not very good. I tell you the plot, but to be honest, there barely is one. You go through 3 chapters, one for the Knights, one for the Vikings, and one for the Samurai. Samurais. What's the plural? Is it samurai or samurais? Why did I put this in the video? Each of the chapters has different characters that you play as. Well, I say characters, but I'm pretty sure you need to have a personality to be considered a character. Bazinga. Yeah, the writing in the story mode is so fucking bland. Barely anybody in this game has any sort of personality. The closest thing this game has to a main character is the antagonist, Apollyon, who's a total bloodthirsty psychopath who wants everyone to admit that they all get off on having wars. I mean, it's not much, but it's literally more than any other character in this game has. There was a moment in the Viking story where the main guy you play as is fighting this evil warlord because I can't even remember why. I think just because he wanted to be the only Viking warlord out there. And before the fight, she asks him, "What are you doing amongst the warborn?" And instead of getting into an argument or having some banter or fucking doing anything to build up some drama or tension between these two characters, he just says, "You talk too much." Fuck you! Fuck you! Answer the question! Flesh out your characters! Give them any personality at all other than "I like to fight." I mean, I get that the story is about the inevitability of war, so it kind of makes sense for all the characters to be standard warrior-soldier types, but even if that is the case, it still makes for a pretty uninteresting game world. And the times where the game does try to be more interesting by having a bit of comic relief...
So? What did they tell you?
I don't speak Japanese.
I know I'm criticizing the story too much, but it's not like the gameplay is that interesting. I mean, like I said, the fighting mechanics work really well, but it did get kind of repetitive after a while. Plus, I think that in a game like this, fighting AI characters is nowhere near as satisfying as fighting real people. So yeah, in my personal opinion, I thought the story was boring, short, and barely had any plot. But the question is the multiplayer good enough to sell the game on its own? Well, I don't actually know. I guess it depends on how much you like the core gameplay. Like I said, the multiplayer is good, but the single player is bad. Whether the multiplayer is enough to sell the game to you on its own, well, that's for you to decide. Personally, I think if they fix some of the technical problems the multiplayer has, it could be pretty great, but right now, well, let's just say I'd recommend it to you if you're a fan of throwing people off of cliffs, and honestly, why wouldn't you be? For Honor is like getting drunk. It's fun with other people, but when you're on your own, it's kind of sad.